We've worked with a lot of US headquartered companies that were expanding into the UK who really enjoyed our work and what we're doing. Leaders within these organisations that we place are not just needing management, not second line management, but they're managing managers who are managing managers. And I think that's been the biggest sort of shock for me. AI is here to stay. I think what's important with that is that it's not doom and gloom for our industry. We're all already using AI in our daily lives anyway, whether we know it or not. I don't think it's here to replace human expertise either. I think it's going to empower payroll and HR professionals to operate at a more strategic and more efficient level.
Welcome to the Payroll Podcast, the show that explores the latest insights and innovations in the world of payroll. Today's episode of the Payroll Podcast is sponsored by Deel. Now take a moment to consider the following pre-show scenario. Imagine you had to visit 6 different houses just to cook your dinner. One place has the pots and the pans, another has the stove, another has the food. You get the idea. Sounds ridiculous, right? Well, the reality is most global businesses operate exactly the same way, using 6 different tools and platforms just to play their global workforce. But now there's one platform offering truly simple, truly global payroll, and that's today's sponsor. That's Deel. That's Deel. And Deel's fully managed global payroll makes it possible to pay your entire team in over 100 countries and in over 200 currencies, all in one place. So whether you're an enterprise company, a small business, or something in between, Deel is built to meet your unique business needs. With in-house customer success managers, local payroll experts, and more, Deel's fully managed global payroll eliminates third-party handovers and instead provides unmatched compliance and flexibility. In fact, they'll even help you track and flag the latest changes in payroll regulations before they even become an issue. And with 24/7 monitoring and best-in-class security protocols, your sensitive data is always protected. So are you ready to change your global payroll system? If you are, click the link in the show notes to book your demo with Deel today. Hello and welcome back to the Payroll Podcast. My name is Nick Day. I'm CEO at JGA Recruitment Group. We're specialist payroll recruiters operating in both the US and the UK. And today I'm really excited because I get to bring one of my fellow colleagues onto the show, Tom Croughton. He's a distinguished figure in the realm of HR and global tech payroll talent acquisition. He's also the co-founder of our JGA US enterprise, and he's been absolutely pivotal in revolutionizing the global payroll recruitment landscape. He's also been very supportive in building networks and communities in the HR tech space, so much so that now based out of both Austin and London, Tom has built a network that consists of over 17,000 professionals on LinkedIn and a number of followers and an HR and payroll LinkedIn newsletter as well. It's constantly showcasing his expertise and influence in the industry, and with a career spanning over 7 years, what a great time to bring him onto the Payroll Podcast today to talk about his achievements, to talk about the US recruitment market, and to find out more about what it takes to really deliver excellence when it comes to payroll talent acquisition. So without further ado, Tom Croughton, welcome to the Payroll Podcast. How are you feeling?
Thank you very much. I feel much better after that introduction. I mean, couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, we've worked together now for over 7 years, although we're in different offices. You're in London today. I'm in Devon. I know you've just come back from Austin, where you're over there regularly as well. So you've got your finger on the pulse for both UK recruitment and US recruitment when it comes to payroll and HR tech talent. We're going to jump into that in just a moment. But let me ask the first question I ask all my guests, which is this. What does the word payroll mean to you?
Wow, big question. I mean, to me, without payroll, it's the lifeblood of an organisation. Without being paid, people don't turn up. And then you're really stuffed. You know, that is payroll on the head for me.
And I know we've, in our experience, Tom, we've had a number of situations where clients have called us, right, going, we need someone now or our team are not going to get paid. And it's crisis talks. I know we obviously support on both permanent temp and contract basis, but what's typically your reaction to a client that might phone you and say, Tom, we're really stuck here. We need someone in place. Our payroll manager is either sick or they've left us suddenly and we're at crisis point. People don't get paid, people leave. You know, what's the typical kind of reaction you'd take to receiving a call like that?
I mean, it's normally quite a calm reaction because we know that this happens. We've been doing this for 15 years. You know, we set ourselves up to be able to support our clients through those crisis talks, right? So we've got a bench of contractors that can come and do your payroll. You know, we've got organisations that we're partnered with that can do your payroll. You know, even if you call us a week before, we'll be able to support you in getting it done.
Fantastic. You are, of course, SVP of the US entity of JGA Recruitment Inc. And tell us a bit more about what that does. Tell us about JGA Recruitment, what they do, and particularly why you were so passionate about getting us launched on US shores.
Sure. So JGA we're a talent partner. We're not just a recruitment agency. We position ourselves as being a talent partner to the industry, to our clients, and to our candidates as well. As you mentioned, we support the global payroll and HR tech space predominantly across EMEA region and then the US as well. The verticals within that niche, because it is niche, payroll, HR, but we support across operational payroll and HR. So your administration up to director level. We also support HR and payroll software providers. And we place teams that support in payroll and HR change as well. So client side stuff. We've operated across purely payroll HR for 15 years across EMEA. As I say, we provide talent solutions, we save clients time and we save them money. What I always say is that we focus on not just finding you a person, but we find you a solution to a problem that's going to help your business. We go deeper than that. Nick, we do recruitment, we've got talent solutions, we've got advisory, exec coaching. We can support with lead generation as well through our audience, salary benchmarking, bespoke salary benchmarking, and then really raising the profile of payroll and HR as well. And I think that's where you really shine through.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I know that I remember the conversation well when Tom came to me and said, Nick, I think we're ready to launch in the US. Now, we're talking about a massive market, right? Different legislation in every single state, different software providers, what we're used to in EMEA. We've been out to the Congress on a number of occasions at the Payroll Org Congress, and we've met suppliers, we've met users. But this is hasn't been a small undertaking. And for someone like yourself who'd moved to the ranks to director of the JGA UK entity, you said, Nick, I'm ready to become, to be the person that launches the US. And understandably, I challenged you and said, well, what makes you so sure? And you gave a great presentation, a great reason why we need to be there to help build the JGA brand and to also, most importantly, perhaps deliver more talent acquisition solutions to a client base that needs, in our opinion, the service that we provide. But tell me a little bit about what your inspiration was about launching in the US, why you were so passionate about doing it, because it's meant that you've had to now be split between both London and Austin, and that's obviously a commitment in itself. And just tell us about why you've been so passionate about making the US launch.
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, I've been in Austin recently and it was hot there, so excuse the rosy cheeks. But in terms of launching, really simple answer to that question is that the demand was there. Like, we knew that demand was there before we launched, and that was kind of the thinking behind it. It's like a light bulb moment. Our clients need us out there, so let's go and support. Some stats just quickly, just in case people don't know, because it blew my mind. 30,000 recruitment agencies in the UK, just over 11,000 in the US. So there's 3 times as many recruitment agencies in the UK than there is in the US, even though the US is 40 times bigger in terms of mass and 5 times larger in terms of population. From my research on other firms, there wasn't, some companies offered support for payroll and HR as part of their wider service, but there didn't seem to be, and I'm yet to come across anyone that focuses purely on global payroll and HR tech recruitment professionals like JGA do. As I said, we've been a leader in that EMEA market for coming on 15 years now. We've always done work for those kind of clients. But in the last probably 5 years, as the globalized world has come about, we've worked with a lot of US headquartered companies that were expanding into the UK or expanding into the EMEA region, who really enjoyed our work and what we're doing. And they said, look, can you replicate what you're doing for us in EMEA or in the UK, in the US, and go over and support us stateside? And it's a question of absolutely. We've got networks there. As you say, Nick, we spend a lot of time with Payroll Org, and we've got connections and things out in the US. So it kind of grew organically from those conversations. And then we obviously set about a proper business plan. And we've seen huge demand for our services. We've doubled the team since starting as well 6 months back, to be able to support as many clients and candidates as possible. As you say, no small undertaking, but it's been massively exciting for me and the team.
So what have been the main differences? People listening to this, we've got a UK audience, we've got a relatively sizable audience in EMEA, but we've certainly got a big audience in the US that listens to the Payroll podcast. To give an example, one of the key changes I've noticed is the sheer scale and size of the operations in the US. I was speaking to Angela Wagner on the show recently, and when she was at Amazon in the US, she was paying almost 1 million employees, which is crazy. Like the biggest payroll we've got in the UK would probably be the NHS, and we're not looking at those kind of numbers from a payroll perspective, even in, we're talking about the biggest employer ever in the UK. I think it kind of blew my mind, the size and scale of some of the organizations and the kind of employee footprints of the organizations in the US. And 10,000 employees in the UK would be considered very, very big. In the US, it's kind of 100,000. So that's been a big shift that I've noticed. For those listening, what would you see as being the major differential points between supporting clients in the UK and supporting clients in the US?
I think, so UK-wise, we have, UK legislation. I mean, the biggest difference that I found is domestically in the US is the tax laws and changes in between states. And as you say, some of the biggest payrolls in the US are domestic. It's such a large population, over 300 million people. I think that's the biggest difference for me. You mentioned the NHS, but really, if you're talking global organisations in the UK, you're probably topping out global footprint for UK headquartered business at probably 50,000. Almost an average size payroll in the US. And I think that's been a difference for me is, leaders within these organizations that we place are not just needing management, not second line management, but they're managing managers who are managing managers. And I think that's been the biggest sort of shock for me, is the sheer scale and then the complexities between states as well.
So what have the challenges been then from a recruitment perspective? If we think about the fact that the payroll market in particular over the last 12 months more than ever has rapidly evolved in terms of the way that the technology's advanced. We're now seeing more global workforces than ever, people employing employees anywhere in the world. So that's kind of changed the way that we recruit for staff. And in the UK, we have specific talent shortage challenges we have to overcome. So I wonder if they're different to the kind of challenges you're faced with in the US. What are the kind of, a client comes to you and says, Tom, I need your support. We're faced with this challenge. Does it differ to the UK or EMEA? Are they different types of challenges? And if not, what are the key challenges that you'd have to typically overcome?
Generally, I think other than the multi-state element of doing payroll in the United States, challenges are kind of the same. And we've seen that through our WhatsApp groups and things like that. If you have a problem with some kind of payroll, yes, the legislation's different. Or if you have a team problem, generally they're global problems. And as I say, we're living in a global world now, and that's coming into our industry too. I think, as I say, other than the multi-state legislation differences, a lot of the pain points are the same.
Okay. So what are then some of the trends then that are shaping the HR, tech and global payroll space? Because I would argue that the UK probably follows the US trends to a certain degree. We kind of find the US goes first. The UK kind of watches from afar and then kind of adapts a bit later on. A good example of that would be EWA or pay on demand. That was definitely available in the US before it was in the UK. We've recently seen a bit of traction in the UK market where they're starting to really take on pay on demand as a solution. And yet, actually, Europe hasn't really adapted to that at all. It's very much a US and then a UK thing. And the Europe is still thinking, well, I'm not sure if this is going to really work with all the legislation and changes we've got to accommodate here. What are some of the trends that you're seeing happen in the US that you think may actually translate to the UK in the future?
Again, yes, US early adopters always seem to be, but these are global problems now. As I say, we're living in this globalized world, and I wrote about a couple of these trends in Inside Track, which is the newsletter that you mentioned. I think a massive one is AI. It's always going to be, it's here to stay. I think what's important with that is that it's not doom and gloom for our industry. We're all already using AI in our daily lives anyway, whether we know it or not. I don't think it's here to replace human expertise either. I think it's going to empower payroll and HR professionals to operate at a more strategic and more efficient level. We probably are going to see those data-driven tasks replaced by AI. And the role of the payroll professional, I think, is going to evolve to become more analytical in the future. I know you've done a lot of work around sort of AI and payroll and that kind of thing, Nick. And I think we've got similar thought tracks on that. Maybe somewhere we differ is the flexible pay. I'm not sure how that's going to, I'm not sure if it's a benefit or a hindrance, or is it quite dangerous for employees to be able to access their pay whenever. I think there's going to have to be a lot of legislation around that, no matter where you are. Yeah, so if you're in the US or if you're in EMEA, you're global, there's going to have to be legislation around that. But I think our thoughts around AI and payroll are kind of similar.
Yeah, I think the only thing that's constant in this life is change, right? And AI is coming, and if we don't adapt, we die. And I'm a big believer in that. But I think it's going to really help elevate the profession, because I think that it allows. And this is people have heard this time and time again, right? But it's going to ultimately, we can automate the manual tasks so that payroll people can become more strategic in what they do. It's going to free up time to really look at payroll with a different lens and say, right, how can we really now raise the profile so it can sit alongside our senior stakeholders over there in HR, finance, or IT, or wherever it might be, and really have a voice at the board table. But I think we need to embrace it. I think it can do some amazing things. You and I both know, because we're doing our own AI certifications here, just how impactful it can be. And I'm hoping that we can use some of that expertise to support our clients as well in the future in terms of some of the consulting services that we provide. But let me ask a different question then, because we've seen a meteoric rise in employer of record solutions really disrupting the payroll landscape. And even when you started in this business 7 years ago, Tom, there were kind of legacy providers, enterprise providers that were trusted and were always used by the majority of clients when it came to payroll software, when it came to even global outsourced solutions. We then saw big enterprise solutions really hit the market and move it quickly, the likes of Workday, almost from nowhere at the time when it came in. Suddenly everyone was adopting it. We've seen similar situations with Oracle and SAP in the past. We've now seen a meteoric rise of EOR solutions come in, and I think they're really disrupting the payroll landscape in a positive way. More solutions, more options, I'd always argue, are a good thing. But where does that leave the market going forward? What's been your experience, particularly in the US, where this is probably more widely adopted than it is in the UK at the moment? How are you seeing the EOR providers sit within the overall sort of payroll ecosystem, so to speak?
I mean, as you say, hugely disruptive, but positive, I think. I mean, we've seen, our industry's first unicorn companies are all EOR or some kind of payroll software provider. I think, not to bore people too much, and I don't want to mention the C word, but I think we're still dealing with the hangover of COVID a little bit. If we think about it, you're moving into adapting to remote work, hugely disrupted teams globally. And the expansion of talent pools as well. I think that's massive. Previously, if you're going to hire somebody, you can stick a pin in the map and you're going to compete with the companies that are within 30 miles of your head office. Those days are completely gone. You're having to compete with companies globally. It makes salary not the most important thing anymore. People want to know that they're working for a forward-thinking organization, a stable organization, and it means that employers are going to have to start thinking about their EVPs slightly more, employer value propositions. Talking on EOR, I think that's some of the reasons that they've started to do so well in recent years. But of course, it's not a new concept. EORs have been they originated in the USA. I think it was like 1960s or something like that. And again, it was the complexity between state lines. That's where they came from, and they've evolved. The industry has been around for an awful long time, but you mentioned it, Nick. These companies seem like they've blown up, post-COVID world, when we are working in a global world. 2021, 22 is when they seem to have had this meteoric rise that we speak of. Historically, a lot of companies think that actually you have to be in the office to do this job. Turns out you don't with COVID. Not only do you not need to be in the office, you don't need to be in the same state. You actually don't need to be in the same country. And that's where these EOR companies have come in, helping to navigate the complexities of working remotely. As I say, not just out of state, but out of country as well.
I like the fact you mentioned the EVP. That's the employer value proposition. Let's focus on that just for a moment. So something I want to ask you. Clients are always trying to attract top talent. We know the reason we exist as a business in JGA Recruitment, both in the US and the UK, is because we know that companies really struggle to find top talent. And that's just the reality of the situation. Payroll talent is undervalued, but it's incredibly valuable if you're in that world, because we know how skilled payroll professionals are in order to do their job. We understand the complexities of the legislation they've got to navigate, and that's not often, as you say, not just in one state or one country. It's now global. The different systems we've got to be able to use, the kind of reports we've got to deliver, and all the different things. Looking after the employees, the employee experience. We know that if we don't deliver good employee experience or good accurate payrolls, that those people leave the business, and that can be very, very costly to replace. And we don't want to, we want to retain our top talent, not lose that talent. So if we bring that back into the EVP picture, what at the moment is really attracting top payroll talent to leave one employer for another? What are the kind of trends you're seeing that's saying, actually, if a particular company offers X, Y, and Z, that's the kind of thing that payroll people in particular are interested in at the moment? I'd be interested to know how that may have shifted, particularly post-COVID. Hello, global payroll leaders. Are you facing challenges in finding the right payroll talent for your team? If you are, I hear you. And I'm here to offer you a solution, because at JGA Payroll Recruitment, we're experts at sourcing, attracting, and engaging with top-tier global payroll talent that really drives business success. So don't let the frustration of finding great payroll professionals hold you back from raising the profile of payroll in your organization. The cost of a poor hire isn't just financial. It costs you time, or worse, it damages the reputation of your payroll operation. That's why we're 100% dedicated to ensuring your recruitment journey with us is nothing short of exceptional. Partner with us at JGA because we're an award-winning global payroll recruitment agency with a proven track record of success. We have over 100 five-star Google reviews, and we're trusted by many of the world's leading brands. And we would love to help you elevate your team with the best payroll talent available anywhere in the world. Reach out to us today at 01727 800 or 377, or visit us at jjrecruitment.com. And while you're at it, why not sign up to our weekly payroll newsletter for exclusive industry insights and job opportunities? With us, your perfect payroll opportunity or your perfect payroll hire awaits.
Remote working is number one. We don't really speak to many clients anymore that are 5 days in the office. Some people like that, and that's fine. But I think somewhere in your EVP, you have to have some kind of flexible working. That's what people want. It's not just what they want. That's what people are demanding at the moment. That's going to be a pull. We're also seeing loads of out there benefits that are coming out at the moment. And I was having a conversation with a company the other day that part of an EVP for their clients is that they offer crypto coins as instead of stocks and shares. They're offering crypto coins. That is massive. It's game changing. You're seeing other companies that are offering. We're living in a time of cost of living crisis as well, right? We're seeing companies now that actually, what can we do to support our employees? We can't give them more money. We can't give them a higher bonus. What we can do is teach them how to use that money better. So we've adopted this in our own business. I think we loved it so much. Financial advice, mortgage advisory, offering those kind of things to support employee well-being through financials, I think is massive. That's quite a new thing. There's not a lot of companies that do it. I think that's why we want to be early adopters as well. Really supporting staff. You might not be able to give them more money, understandable, but what you can do is help them through a cost of living crisis by making their money go further. I think that's probably one of the best benefits I've seen recently.
So let's say we've got a client now that's got a really good EVP. All right, they're delivering some of the benefits you provided. They're offering remote working, but they can't find the talent. Why are companies struggling to find really good payroll professionals or really good HR tech professionals, implementation professionals, maybe even payroll sales professionals? Or what are the kind of things that perhaps they wouldn't know or understand because they're on the other side of the recruitment fence, so to speak? We have an internal view of where those challenges are and how to overcome them. Maybe it'd be helpful for our listeners to understand why they perhaps don't get the responses to their adverts, or why they don't always get people engaging on platforms like LinkedIn, wherever it might be, and why they often find it such a struggle to find good talent, and I guess how you manage to overcome those challenges.
So we know the journey that our clients are on. We know the journey that our candidates are on. Often they will see the need themselves and they might ask us for them. They might try and hire it directly. I think where our real strategic value comes in is that if we know the trajectory that our client is on, we know a client that has done that previously, and we know the talent that really made a positive impact on their business to get them to the next level. It's all about having a conversation. It's about those pre-existing relationships where I can say, hi, Nick, you're expanding into the US. I know the perfect guy to do it. His name's Tom, right? But it's, okay, here you go. And that's going to take you to the next level. We also know that with our candidates as well. And our candidates know and trust our career advice that we can offer. Again, this feeds into the passive talent bit. People trust us to take them through their careers. That might involve placing them 2 or 3 times over the course of 15, 20 years. I know that you've done that yourself, Nick. And it's, okay, Nick, here is the opportunity that I think is going to really shape your career. Is now the right time for you to take it? That person isn't responding to messages on LinkedIn. They're not applying for jobs, and their CV or their resume isn't on a job board. Actually, they don't know they're looking for a job until we call them and we pitch it to them. So I think that's a way that you can stay ahead, and that's the real value that I think we can bring.
I think you mentioned the word there. I've had a show on this on my other show, HRLND podcast. I had Stephen Covey on, who talks about the speed of trust, and trust being the most important thing that in any relationship or any business, whether it's you're being a leader, whether you're trying to establish client credibility, whether you're trying to build new customer bases. If you can't establish trust, everything else falls underneath. And I think something that was quite interesting that popped into my head then was a placement that I made many years ago, and you'll know who it is. It's actually an individual that became the first ever payroll partner within a top global firm, a professional consulting firm globally. And her name's Maria Mason. She's been on the show as a guest. But this is someone that I've known for many years, and I've placed her, I think, 5 times in her career. Right? I mean, you highlight this as an example because this is a good example where the trust actually played into what you were talking about. I had a meeting with a senior partner at BDO, actually at a client event at Wimbledon at the time, which was lovely. And he pulled me aside and said, Nick, I need a particular individual need these particular skill sets. They're very unique. We've been to the market, we've interviewed multiple people, but we need someone who's got a mixture of sales experience, bid experience, payroll management experience, global, who's got high volume, a whole list of different things. And he said, do you think that's something you can help with? Am I looking for, a needle in a haystack? I said, look, there's one person I know that could do this. I have no idea if they're looking, but I've placed her several times before. I'm going to give her a call. She trusts me. She'll take my call. That's the first thing. Often people can find talent, but they can't engage the talent. You're not going to answer a call you've never seen. You're not going to answer a LinkedIn message you don't know that person's from. You just think it's spam. You disregard it. I was very lucky. So I've got one person. I don't know if she's keen. I picked up the phone to Maria and I phoned her and she took my call. And it just so happened it had to be the right time for her. She had a bad day. And she's like, you know what? I will take that call. That job sounds great. It was a one interview, as in no one else was in the process. She met with the client. It worked really well. She's been there now, must be over 5 years. But she's the first individual that's promoted herself through that business, growing their payroll product significantly. And the company is BDO. And now she became the first official partner of that firm. And they're a top 5 global professional accounting firm. So we're not talking small scale here. And I love that example for me, because if I didn't have that trusting relationship with her, she wouldn't have taken my call. If I didn't know the market, I wouldn't have been able to deliver the solution immediately. It was in Starbucks outside Wimbledon Station that this conversation happened. And we solved their problem. Now, of course, there's a commercial return for us, but for them, it saved them time, it saved them money. They've got someone now that's been there for many years. It's absolutely transformed their payroll operation. And I think that all came from trust. Now, I'm giving one example that I've used, and I'm obviously fond of that one. But the reality is, you probably got 10 of those examples yourself, and as of others. And I think that's sometimes the thing that people don't see on the other side of the fence. There's an assumption that maybe recruitment agencies just go to a LinkedIn and do the same search as everyone else does. And yes, there's an element of that comes into our role, but it's the engagement piece and knowing who to call and when to call and what will get them, understanding their motivations to know if I want to trigger that person's interest, I need to find a role that's offering this. And then I'll go back and I'll know they'll take my call in that example. So I think the trust thing is absolutely critical to what we do. Let's go back then to the candidate side of things. We talked a little about the client problems. There'll be lots of people listening to this that may be in the job market themselves. They may be looking for a new payroll opportunity. What advice would you give to payroll and or HR tech professionals who are trying to stay ahead of the curve? They want to try and make sure that they are going to be marketable in the future of payroll and the future of HR. And we've talked briefly about how that both those industries are really rapidly evolving. What advice would you give to make sure that they become, I guess, A, seen and B, incredibly employable to someone that might be looking to recruit new payroll of HR talent in the future?
Yeah, it sounds simple, but it's quite overwhelming. We look at this AI and tech revolution, and we've seen it ourselves, Nick, haven't we? It's like, are we going to be needed? And it's like, well, yes, of course you are. I think what's really important is that we all, I talk about our industry, which is payroll and HR. I include myself in that, include you in that as well. We've got to upskill ourselves, and potentially we need to look at reskilling ourselves as well. We've got to stay ahead of the curve here. We've got to update our knowledge, update our skill set to remain relevant, right? And I think a lot of those data-driven tasks, as we said, are going to be replaced with data analytical tasks, data that can be used to make strategic decisions. I think it's going to elevate the role of the payroll professional, but you have to be able to upskill, and you've got to be able to potentially reskill yourself as well. Embracing all of that automation stuff, it's very easy to see it as a threat. In fact, I did for a while, as you know. But I think we need to be looking to leverage these tools to enhance productivity more than anything, and take on those more strategic positions. And then we're in a changing world, and it changes daily at the moment. And as I say, it can be overwhelming. But if you've got an open mind to change, and you want to thrive in our industry, you've got to be comfortable changing, and it's probably going to be a consistent change. A change you made 6 months ago isn't going to work for you in 6 months' time. So I think just having that open mindset as well. And I speak about this a lot, and Nick, I chew your ear off about it all the time, is constantly updating our entourage. The people that are around you, I call it our entourage because they're in it, they're with us, they're on the court with us. Having those people around you can strengthen you and what you're doing. You can use their skill set to your advantage, as they will use your skill set to their advantage as well. But having those people around you that keep themselves up to date, advancing in technology, advancing in the world, politics, all that kind of stuff. Industry bodies, so SHRM, Payroll org are fantastic for doing that kind of stuff. Influencers, tech influencers as well. Make sure you're following the right ones. There might be a bit of A and B testing, something you agree with, something you don't. But tech influencers, I think, are massive. And keep in contact with us as well. We're committed to this industry. We know it's changing. We know it's ever evolving. We're going to try and make sure that we're at the forefront of it. Keep in contact with us. If you don't want a job now, fine. If you don't want a candidate now, fine. Let's have a chat and build a relationship. See how we can support each other.
Fantastic. Well, quick question then. So people listening to this, particularly if they're in the US side, right? And we're focusing a little bit on the US market because that's obviously what you've launched. That's what the focus of the show today is about. What's been the biggest challenge for you? So I'll give a little bit of a lead in here to how I've seen it. And I think the challenge that I've discovered basically just from observing the work that you've been doing, the growth work you've been doing, and yes, you've had a lot of success in winning new clients, which is fine. But I've sensed there's been a little bit of struggle or challenge, if you like, just sort of educating the US market to the fact that we exist. And I say that because you speak to clients, they go, we already use X, Y, and Z, but they're not payroll specialists. And my understanding is we are the first ever specialist payroll and HR tech recruiter to launch in the US. And because there are less agencies, as you established earlier, I think you said there's 11, 12,000 agencies in the US versus 30,000 plus in the UK. Not everyone's familiar with what agencies even do or how we work or why there's a value to be had from even working with an agency over there. So there's a whole education piece. So would that be the biggest challenge that you've been confronted with? And that would be just my assumption. Or is it something completely different? And what are the challenges that you're faced with every day that you need to overcome when launching a new business in the US?
I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Nick. It is educating on what recruitment is. It doesn't seem to be, there is a recruitment presence there. There is agency presence in the US, but not for our industry. And I think it's having a lot of meetings with clients to explain, actually, look, this is what we're going to do. Number one, we can find you a solution to your problem. We can find you the best person for the role that you're recruiting for, or the role that you don't even know that you need. But without having an understanding of what it is that we do and how we do it and how we can add value, it takes a few meetings of education, and this is how we do it and this is how it works. And I think that, yeah, I think that's been the biggest challenge. But that's what we're all about at JGA. And it's like, yes, it's fantastic to win clients. It's fantastic to call that person and give them a 15, 20K pay rise and they tell you that it's life changing. That's amazing. But what we're all about is long-term partnerships, relationships. We want to build relationships with companies that are going to stay with us throughout the journey. We're going for this full cycle thing, right? So this is more so in the HR tech or payroll services space, is how can we leverage our audience to help your company to grow? And as you grow, we can then find you the top talent, effectively covering our fees. It's a full cycle, and that's what we're really going for. As we say, on the operational side, people, the value that we can bring is saving time and money and making sure people get paid. But on the HR tech side, actually, we've got a voice. You have a voice, Nick. We've got 40,000 followers on LinkedIn now. I think this podcast has had over 180,000 downloads, I think it is. Impressive stuff. You must be really happy with that. And I'm sure that the people listening to this today, it's all target audience stuff. You generally don't, it's not like radio. You don't stumble across a payroll podcast. You've gone to look for it because you care about your industry and being as best you can. So we can offer that platform to software providers who are interested in our target audience. And our target audience are interested in what those providers have to offer. I think that's a key thing as well. It's, software providers, again, solving a problem. You need this. This is how you do it. And we can make the connections. I think we're middlemen effectively, aren't we? We're middle people. We marry people together to solve a problem and to help them to grow. And I think that's the idea behind getting recruitment right first and getting the language around that in the US has been big. But then going a step further to the full 360 partnership model, getting clients to understand that and then buy into that has been slightly more not difficult, but it just takes time. And again, it's the education piece that you speak about.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, let's leave. I'm going to open the vault in just a moment. Last question then for people listening to this, whether you're client or candidate, we'll find out. 3 top tips for a client that might be want to recruit a payroll professional. What would you recommend? And 3 top tips if you're a payroll candidate who wants to find a new payroll position. What would you recommend? I
think we spoke on this, didn't we? Yes. You're going to have to stay ahead of the curve. If you're a candidate, let's focus on that first. It's got to be upskilling yourself. It's got to be getting your entourage right and constantly updating it as well. Who was correct and who was ahead of the curve beforehand might not be that person in 6 months' time. So constantly updating that and being open to change. You have to be open to change. And if you're a client, you can use us to support you. Of course you can, But if you don't want to do that, that's fine. But you have to nail down what your EVP is, your employee value proposition. As I said, we're living in this global world. People aren't just moving for cash anymore. They want to know that they're part of something that's going to change the world moving forward. It has good values, is committed to its people. That's a massive one as well. And then also understanding or having a plan as to what you're going to do for next 3-5 years. I found a piece of information the other day that I thought was really interesting. Project and change is going to be huge coming up. We're still dealing with that hangover of the C word, COVID. All projects were put on hold for probably 2-3 years. We're still seeing those coming through now. And PwC said 73% of organizations are planning to move their HR applications to the cloud by 2025. You're going to need to be ahead of that because otherwise you're competing with 73% of the world's organizations for that same talent. So I think planning ahead for any change that you need to go through is a key one for clients as well.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, listen, let's open the vault. So 3 short, sharp questions for you, Tom. I'm not sure if you've even seen these yet, so let's find out what we're going to do. So drawing from your extensive career, what's one piece of timeless advice you'd offer to payroll professionals today?
I think, so with payroll, I think it's, especially, so if you're starting out in an administration role or something like that, it could be quite easy. And I hear candidates say to me that it's quite easy to just run through the motions, pay cycle each month, do this, do that. But actually, I think you need to be waving the flag for you and what you're doing. You do amazing work, and we said at the start, if people don't get paid, they don't come to work, and that work is done by the administration professionals, right? So I think waving the flag for what you're doing, and asking for a seat at the table. How do I progress to this? How do I progress to that? What's next for me? Asking for your career plan. I think that's probably a key thing for payroll professionals. Some people don't want to do that, and that's fine. Some people get a real kick out of knowing that they're helping to send their colleagues' kids to school by paying them on time, or they're helping them to pay their bills. Amazing. Keep doing that. But if you do want more, say it.
Don't be afraid to ask. I think I'd probably agree. It's a relatively introverted industry, isn't it, professionals? And I think they don't shout enough to really from the rooftops about what brilliant work that they do. And I think there's an opportunity there to do that. And it's going to be difficult to get that seat at the board table unless we have enough collective voices all shouting at the same time and showing, the value that they can bring to an organization, particularly with the impact of AI, the impact of data, the impact of analytics, because I think there's an opportunity now to really demonstrate the value that payroll professionals can provide through their operations by utilizing those tools, by showing where there's significant cost savings to be made, by showing analysis and trends and reports that actually have a massive influence on the bottom line of organizational performance. So I think that's a really good point. Well made. Question number 2, looking ahead, what key features or capabilities do you envision will define the future of payroll?
I think we've covered a lot of this, right? I think it's going to be advances in technology. There's a lot going on politically as well, so we need to be careful of all that kind of stuff, but let's not get into that today. I think you're going to be looking at tech, you're going to be looking at automation, you're going to be looking at change. We mentioned the PwC study. A lot of that HR change is going to be to do with AI. That is a fact. I think keeping ahead with those kind of things are going to be incredibly important.
Okay, and last but not least, a bit of fun. If the payroll industry was a book, a song, or a film, which book, song, or film would it be, and why? And I've answered this question before on a previous episode, so it's over to you now.
I mean, the first one that came to mind is a post that Freddie did the other day, which is payroll is like riding a bike, but your bike is on fire, you're on fire, everything's on fire. It doesn't have to be like that if we do it in the right way, right? And we've got the process in place, and it's steady moving forward. It doesn't have to be that way. Sex on Fire was the song that came to mind, just straight out light bulb moment, if I'm honest. It was an animal or film as well.
I know, it can be any of the three. You've picked a song. Sex on Fire song, that works. Although we've got images now of people riding on a bike covered in flames, but no, I get it. Freddie, by the way, is a colleague of yours, isn't he? Works in your team, so just put that in reference. Okay, fantastic. Well, look, if people want to find out more about the work that you're doing, Tom, they want to reach out to you. Where can they find you? My
contact details are plastered all over LinkedIn, 24/7. You can contact me through LinkedIn direct message, email tom@jgarecruitment.com, or I've got a landline or a mobile, again, available on my LinkedIn. I'm sure, Nick, you can pop it in down below here as well.
I'll put your LinkedIn connection in a page. Of course, if you want to find out more about the service we provide as well, you can go to jgarecruitmentinc.com. That's for the US entity, or jgarecruitment.com for the UK entity. So if you want to find out more, go to that. There is salary tools available on there. There's blogs. There's lots of information. So even if you're not recruiting, I'm pretty sure if you go to either of those sites, you'll find a wealth of resources that you might find useful in your day-to-day role. So do check those out, and those links will also be in the show notes. Well, I just want to say a huge thank you to our podcast listeners for joining us again on today's episode. Hopefully you found it useful to understand a little bit more about the US payroll recruitment market. Not something we've ever covered before on this show, something a little bit different. I want to say a huge thank you to Tom Croughton, who's the SVP for JGA Recruitment Inc., for joining me on today's show as well. Thank you for your insights, Tom. I wish you the best success in the world in continuing to grow that payroll operation. Of course, it benefits me as much as it benefits you, but it's really exciting as well to see how much we can really raise the profile of payroll in the US like we have in the UK. And I think if we do it collectively, really exciting things are going to happen for everyone concerned. So really, really excited, and I wish you the best of luck in continuing with that venture. And of course, if you are a payroll leader listening to this show, whether you're in the US or the UK, well, I've given you the links already, but please do get in touch with either myself or Tom and his team. We can help you. You can find out more at jgarecruitment.com, or as I said, jgarecruitmentinc.com. Until next time, please do remember to subscribe to the show. Please share it with all of your colleagues and friends, and together we can all raise the profile of payroll globally. I've been your host. My name is Nick Day. I'm going to say one more thank you. Tom Croughton, thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you.
Today's episode of the Payroll podcast has been sponsored by Deel, the all-in-one global people platform that simplifies how you pay your global teams. Deel's fully managed global payroll makes it possible to pay your entire team in over 100 countries and in over 200 currencies all in one place. So whether you're an enterprise business, a small company, or something in between, Deel is built to meet your unique business needs. With in-house customer success managers, local payroll experts, dedicated points of contact, and more, Deel's fully managed global payroll eliminates third-party handovers and it provides unmatched compliance and flexibility. In fact, they'll even help you track and flag the latest changes to payroll regulations before they even become an issue. And with 24/7 monitoring and best-in-class security protocols, your sensitive data is always protected. So are you ready to transform your global payroll system? If you are, click the link in the show notes and book your demo with Deel today.